Gu Yuncang thought he was an ordinary dragon cub, but he did not realize that he was the first-in-line heir to the imperial family. She decided to lie flat. After lying flat, she met all kinds of people. The heir of the spring god bloodline who was despised by the family, a talented girl from the Xuanming tribe who lacks talent, a noblewoman and young master with uncertain weather conditions, the young chieftain of the Wood clan, crushed by responsibility. Gu Yuncang casually helped them solve their troubles, but he didn't expect them to all follow him. After lying flat, I get the following of others. Even as powerful as me, I will suffer. Spring God's bloodline inheritor. I am willing to turn my lifelong faith into your solid sword. The genius girl of the Xuanming tribe said, whatever my lord wishes for is our task. Miss Noble. I will use language to become the strongest shield, and spend my whole life guarding my lord. Wherever plants grow, we will offer our blessings to you, said the young leader of the Mu tribe. Keywords of the novel. The heir of the empire starts lying flat without pop-ups after birth. The heir of the empire starts lying flat after birth. Complete download of TXT. The heir of the empire starts lying flat after birth. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Birth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Birth. The Z Galaxy, celestial blue star, is a deep blue planet, with a red glow flashing through and sandstorms appearing on the ground. In front of him was a darkness, and Gu Yuncang was immersed in the water, breathing calmly. Her golden eyes sparkled in the darkness. The warm atmosphere enveloped Gu Yuncang, making her feel relaxed. The feeling of being in the mother's body is very warm, making it difficult for her to break free from it. The small body is absorbing energy and using this water as nutrients for the body. The more energy she absorbs, the less she can feel the presence of her body, but her intuition tells her that it's not yet time. This feeling of being soft and prone is indeed very subtle. Gu Yuncang slowly closed his eyes and continued to rest, relying on his instinctive absorption of energy to provide his own life characteristics. A few more days later, Sajuo's soft voice sounded, and her tightly closed eyes opened in an instant. A strange breath rushed into her nose, causing Gu Yuncang's eyebrows to furrow. His golden eyes sparkled with a radiance, showing great hostility towards this intruder. A demonized lizard monster with a body size of about 3 meters smelled a fragrant smell and greedily gazed at the golden dragon egg lying quietly in the cave. As its mouth parts were about to touch the surface of the eggshell and its body covered it, there was a clicking sound. The eggshell cracked a thin crack, and then grew larger and larger. A pair of hands, like lotus roots, pierced through the heart of the demonized lizard and monster, spraying rich blood on her body. The demonized lizard monster has no fighting power because its core power has been crushed. Gu Yuncang withdrew his hand, and his golden eyes showed no emotional fluctuations. With a loud bang, the sound of a huge lizard corpse falling to the ground sounded. The expression of the demonized lizard and monster dying in silence did not attract Gu Yuncang's attention. At the next moment, Gu Yuncang turned around and looked at the golden eggshell. Then, the little hand grabbed the eggshell and put it in its mouth to eat. A clicking sound sounded, a golden light flashed, and pure white clothes appeared on her body. The rich blood is engulfed by the clothes, transforming into the energy that sustains their existence. Gu Yuncang felt warm all over, as if he was full of strength. According to the guidance of inheriting memories, Gu Yuncang knew that the eggshell that gave birth to him would provide his innate energy. Without the protection of elders, absorbing the energy of eggshells can maintain one's own vital characteristics. Her golden eyes drooped, seemingly indifferent to the movements around her, but in reality, the changes all around couldn't escape Gu Yuncang's eyes. The black little long hair stretched to the waist, and those golden eyes were not round pupils, but rather vertical pupils representing dragons. There is no expression on the delicate and lovely face, it is as cold as a statue. With golden eyes, she looked at the golden dragon egg that had not yet given birth to life. With a wave of her hand, the golden dragon egg disappeared before her eyes and was placed in space by her. The inheritance memory told her that the life born from this egg would be her younger brother and sister. As a sister, we should protect our younger siblings. In the abrupt and lush forest, when the sunlight refracted down, a lazy blue masked beast lying on the ground for a nap was pierced by several icy spikes flashing through its body, and its lotus-like little hands grabbed its body. In less than a moment, it was dismembered into pieces of meat and baked over the fire. The fire was burning vigorously, and the meat was roasted in no time. Her small hands, resembling lotus roots, grabbed the roasted meat and put it into her mouth to chew, and the high temperature of the food had no effect on her. Dragons are creatures that simulate their own temperature based on the external temperature. Even if she is in humanoid form now, she will not change the characteristics of the dragon. Filling his stomach is Gu Yuncang's foraging instinct in action. After finishing a whole masked beast, she closed her eyes and leaned against a large tree to rest. In theory, in this sparsely populated forest, Gu Yuncang would be seen as food by some large beasts and launch attacks, but these beasts ignored her existence and even deliberately kept away from her. There is no other reason. The inherent dignity of the dragon race is enough to make all beasts fear it. Even if it was a dragon cub in front of them, they dared not easily offend her dignity. The majesty of a king is not to be offended. The fear engraved in their bones made them respect and distance themselves from her. Even if it's a cub, it's still a living dragon race. After resting for an hour, Gu Yuncang slowly opened his eyes. His golden pupils could clearly see the signs of life around him, leaving no opportunity for the figures of those wild beasts to hide in her eyes. It was precisely because she could see their figures clearly that Gu Yuncang chose a big tree to rest, because she knew these beasts dared not come over. Gu Yuncang stood up and walked on the muddy path, his unprotected little feet not stained with any mud, because the dragon clan was most proud of its own protective power. The physical strength is the most prominent feature of the dragon race. Most things cannot leave a mark on the dragon race. Gu Yuncang didn't know the way and couldn't distinguish the direction, so he followed his intuition. Leaving strings of small feet on the muddy ground, they looked extremely cute. Unfortunately, few people come to this forest. Gu Yuncang did not pay attention to the wild beasts around him. His golden eyes calmly walked forward, and the majesty emanating from his body made them hesitant to approach. Animals are the ones who can perceive danger the most. The previous demonized lizard monster was nothing more than thinking that Gu Yuncang had not yet been born, otherwise giving it hundreds of courage would not dare to covet the dragon clan. After 3 hours, Gu Yuncang finally walked out of this forest and saw a house a few kilometers away. He knew that there were still traces of human existence in this place. Gu Yuncang glanced at the place and continued walking forward. The reason why Gu Yuncang chose to be born in this world in anthropomorphic form is because the inheritance memory tells people that form is the most suitable for the outside world. That's right, not because human form can appear powerful, but because human form is suitable for living on this planet. Any living organism has the instinct to survive, thus exhibiting various characteristics that adapt to the environment at that time. It is precisely because of instinct and the requirement of inheriting memories that Gu Yuncang was born in the form of a human, rather than in the form of a dragon race. For Gu Yuncang, the original form is the easiest and does not require too much effort. But the inheritance memory reminds Gu Yuncang that he cannot reveal his true form without absolute power. It is very dangerous for dragons to be exposed before they have absolute power. Although human form requires energy, Gu Yuncang still maintains human form. Sister. A childish voice echoed in Gu Yuncang's mind, why bother with so much? Whoever provokes us will just tear it apart. I can handle things that my sister doesn't want to do. Upon hearing his voice, Gu Yuncang's expression remained unchanged, and his voice appeared in his mind, shut up. Don't disturb my thoughts. Under Gu Yuncang's cold and stern words, he chose to remain silent. He has been looking at the world from her perspective all the way. After walking for another 3 hours, Gu Yuncang finally arrived near the house. At this moment, a tall and dark middle-aged man stood in front of the room, holding a transparent energy gun in his hand and looking around with a cold expression in his eyes. The alarm suddenly sounded, causing the man to frown and shout, "Damn it! These guys are endless." He pulled out his energy gun and aimed it at the barbed wire fence. With a loud bang, the sound of heavy objects falling to the ground echoed, and painful screams also sounded. "Old buddy, there are too many monsters, right?" Upon hearing the gunshots, a middle-aged man with a pale face and an average figure walked out. He first glanced around and then spoke. "Who knows so much today? It's not even the season when they go crazy. Why are there so many of them attacking us today, just like going crazy? I don't know, let's get rid of these guys first." The sound of gunshots and screams kept ringing, and a strong blood filled this world. The girl blinked her golden eyes and looked at their movements curiously, learning. After killing all these crazy beasts, the two of them were also exhausted and panting, with many injuries on their bodies, which were the injuries left by the fierce counterattacks of the beasts. Most of them are minor injuries, with some bleeding, but there are also injuries that penetrate deep into the bones, bleeding very quickly. Fortunately, I sprayed medicine in time, otherwise I couldn't stop the bleeding at all. Are these guys all crazy today? They're attacking us like crazy, it's really endless, almost folding us in. The tall and dark-looking man loudly said, "White, this job is too dangerous. After finishing today's order, I won't do it. If they go crazy every day, we have no way out. Who wants those guys to refuse to spend more money hiring a few people to share our pressure?" Cole, it's not that the organization is reluctant to spend money, but that the blue planet is approaching its meteorite phase, and no one is willing to risk their lives in this industry. Every time it reaches the meteorite period, Tianlan Star will be attacked by thousands of meteorites. At that time, for the sake of life safety, no one dared to risk their lives and go out. They all huddled at home waiting for the end of the meteorite period. Therefore, experienced people will store enough food before the meteorite period to ensure their own life safety. I'm almost forgetting about the meteorite period if you don't tell me. By then, prices will rise again. After dealing with these beasts, let's go to the city and have a drink. When Cole got up and threw away the corpses of birds and beasts hanging on the protective net, he felt a gaze and immediately turned around to look, perfectly matching those golden eyes. Ghosts. Cole immediately shouted, trembling all over, instinctively urging him to aim his gun at Yuncang. Due to disguise, the girl's vertical pupils have already turned into human round pupils. In Cole's eyes was a pink carved jade carving, a fair-skinned little girl, looking at them curiously with golden eyes. The gun did not threaten Yuncang because she felt like she could tear it in an instant. Old buddy. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. White Road G. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. White Luji. White immediately glanced at Yuncang, then patted Carl's shoulder and said, "What are you afraid of? It's just a little girl. I didn't even know you were so timid." White shook his head helplessly, looked at Yuncang not far away through the protective net, and immediately asked, "Which child are you from? Is running this way for fun disrespectful of longevity? Don't you know that the beasts here don't have eyes? Due to the wild animals being in a manic period, their aggression has increased. Therefore, more than a decade ago, the government issued a notice warning people not to come to the forest and wander around unless there is something to do, in order to avoid being injured by the wild animals. The wild beasts in the manic phase will eat people, which is not a joke. Judging from Yuncang's appearance, he is less than 5 years old. Which parent is so careless in letting their children play around? Even if the wild beasts are not in their manic phase, they are approaching the meteorite phase soon. How dangerous this period is. Letting a child wander around is also a big concern for these family leaders." Yuncang did not reply to White's words, but stared at him with his eyes, which were filled with curiosity in their golden eyes. After being reminded by White, Carl finally recovered from his fear and looked in the direction of Yuncang, angrily rebuking, "Don't you know how dangerous it is to be scared? I thought it was some kind of big beast squatting on me, ready to give me a fatal blow. I'm really scared to death." Carl trembled as he spoke, feeling a bit heavy. "White, the nearest village to us is also 3 kilometers away, right? How did the child come here when she was less than 5 years old?" Upon hearing this, White looked at her with a skeptical gaze and said, "She may not be an ordinary child, but a child with a beast-like appearance. The interstellar era humans are divided into purebred humans, half-orcs, and orcs. In the face of numerous radiations, orcs have the greatest advantage as their numbers are scarce, making them the most advantageous race on the entire planet. There is also a racial division among orcs, with the most powerful being the dragon race. Impossible, isn't it? The child who can awaken in the form of a beast has long been taken away by the people of Capital Star. Will he stay on this remote planet like ours? The awakened beast-shaped cubs have long been taken away by the group of guys with eyes higher than the top on Capital Star, and it is impossible for them to continue staying on Azure Star. That's just a speculation." White said helplessly, "All right, old man. Anyway, these guys have been taken care of. We happen to be going for a walk in town, so let's take this child to the inspector's office. Body type characteristics. None. DNA comparison. No similarity has been found yet. Talent test. Not yet awakened. Bloodline testing. Human." Listening to the emotionless mechanical voice recounting the test results, Carl and White immediately looked at Yuncang. The pink and jade carved faces were expressionless, and their golden eyes, shining like gold, made them feel scared. The fabric of the white clothes they were wearing was pure and natural. Pure natural fabrics are expensive on the Blue Star and are one of the symbols of noble status. Being able to use pure natural fabrics to make clothes, this child's identity will not be inferior, but her genetic code and other information cannot be found in the information database. You should know that in the information database, the genetic codes of most people must be entered, except for special nobles and royalty. Of course, the genetic code will not be disclosed to the public and is an important secret of the entire empire. Generally speaking, genetic codes are entered into children at the age of 3 or 4 to prevent their loss. Genetic codes can provide greater protection for the freedom of the public. Lost children can use genetic codes to search for similar genetic codes to determine their identity. The most important thing is to prevent fugitives. Anyone who has committed a crime within the empire cannot change their genetic code even if they change their appearance, so the genetic code can be traced back to the fugitive. This child. White looked at Carl with a worried expression and said, "I'm afraid the origin is not simple." It's not just that simple. The only families that can have gene codes not entered in the information database are those few. I haven't heard of any aristocrats coming to Blue Star on Capital Star, so it can only be assumed that this girl was mostly abducted and sold to this planet before she could enter her genetic code. White, you've really picked up a big trouble. Carl couldn't bear to laugh or cry about this, and his face became serious. Come on, she's still a child. We have to take care of her when we can't find her parents, he said. According to the Imperial Child Protection Law, children are considered incapable persons before reaching the age of 10 and require guardians and their entire empire to protect them. Therefore, in the case of a lost child, strangers who pick up the child must be raised. Half of the cost will be paid by the parents after finding their loved ones, 30% will be paid by the empire, and the remaining 20% will be borne by the child when they reach adulthood. The requirements of imperial law made it impossible for them to leave this child under 5 years old. Raising children. White hesitated and said helplessly, raising a child is like asking for trouble on your own. Unfortunately, the laws of the empire stipulate that they cannot give up any child. Because with the arrival of the interstellar era, reproduction has become an extremely difficult task. Less than 20 out of 100 couples can have children. The low birth rate became the most difficult problem for the empire. Especially with too many interstellar races, the genetic and bloodline issues continue to deepen, making the existence of children even more precious. Every child is the future of the empire, so the entire empire places great emphasis on child protection laws. There's nothing we can do. Carl patted his shoulder heavily and said sourly, "Old buddy, this is our fate. I worked hard just for that little bonus, but now I still have a child emerging. No one is willing to put this on anyone, let alone they are bounty hunters. After completing this order, there is no one like the next one. To be honest, I can't afford to raise a child anymore. How can I have extra money to raise a child?" Gu Yuncang looked up at them without saying a word. Although Gu Yuncang has not yet learned interstellar common language, she can understand their words and understand their meanings. However, Gu Yuncang couldn't say it, so he chose to remain silent. "Is it mute?" White crouched down and looked at Gu Yuncang, thinking to himself that he hadn't heard her say a word for so long. "Isn't it because this child has a congenital disease?" "No, even if you have congenital diseases, you can apply for medical subsidies. There are very few diseases in the interstellar era that can affect genetic codes. In other words, being mute can also be cured. Parents don't need to abandon their children for such a small matter and break the law. You should know that the severity of the imperial child protection law is comparable to the highest law in the empire." The response to White was Gu Yuncang's indifferent gaze. She can understand, but she can't quite understand their thoughts. Because these things were not mentioned in the inheritance memory, she was not very clear about how to deal with them. "It seems like he's really a mute." White sighed helplessly, feeling like he was looking for something to do for himself. They can become bounty hunters to besiege the exotic and wild beasts in the Ice Forest, just to get that expensive salary. "I didn't expect to meet a child without a guardian before I received my salary. Let's go, Carl." White glanced at the bustling crowd around and decided to take the child back. Although they have no blood relationship, they cannot abandon this girl from the moment they know she has no guardian. Compared to White's helpless expression, Carl furrowed his brows and looked at Gu Yuncang with extremely reluctant eyes, his lips moving but not saying anything. White crouched down, his large hands covered in thin calluses reaching out in front of Gu Yuncang. Amidst the vicissitudes of life, a voice of helplessness rang out, "Are you willing to come with us? My name is White Luji." Gu Yuncang glanced at him and thought to himself, how strange this person is. Even though they were reluctant, they still accepted her existence. Is this the responsibility mentioned in the memory of inheritance? Gu Yuncang thought in confusion. Of course, she didn't hesitate to reach out and put her little hand on White's hand. Anyway, these two humans cannot harm her either. If they have that idea, then she will kill them first. Gu Yuncang followed White and Carl with small steps. They are going to the market to buy daily necessities. The meteorite period lasts from 2 to 3 months, which is an unavoidable time period for Uranus. During this period, in order to survive, they had to store food for about 3 months to ensure their own safety. Originally, White and Carl didn't pay much attention to these things because they could reduce their physical consumption with their strong physique, so storing food was not an urgent matter for them. After adding Gu Yuncang, they need to consider more things, such as natural milk and vegetables that are suitable for children. The reason for adding the word natural to the prefix of food is because today's food is mostly composed of synthetic materials. The price of natural grains is 3 to 4 times higher than that of synthetic grains. Buy more milk and formula. White whispered instructions. Children under 5 years old are no different from babies in their eyes. Due to the advancement of medical technology in the interstellar era, lifespan is constantly being extended. Take an ordinary human as an example, they can easily live to 300 years old. A race that is blessed by nature will have a longer age. Unfortunately, it is extremely difficult for older races to reproduce their offspring. This is also why the empire attaches great importance to children. Children are the hope for the future of the empire and a component of its power. Got it. Carl gave White a white eye, then glanced at Gu Yuncang and went to the store to buy a pile of milk powder to put in the space bracelet. The maturity of space technology has made space bracelets ubiquitous and affordable, making it convenient for the public to store food and other items. The difference between space bracelets lies only in the size of storage space. Carl has a space bracelet with a size of 30 cubic meters. Buy some more exotic animal meat. White spoke again, his gaze never leaving Carl. Gu Yuncang glanced at the bustling crowd and chose to stand next to White to avoid being washed away by the crowd. In the next moment, Gu Yuncang also followed White's gaze and looked at Carl, his golden eyes flashing with a look of surprise. Can you understand what I'm saying? White suddenly spoke up and his gaze fell on Gu Yuncang. Since you don't answer, let's change the topic. You're not a mute, he said, you don't like to speak in front of us. Gu Yuncang remained silent, letting him look at him. She can understand but cannot speak, because these things are not present in the memory of inheritance. Looking at her silent expression, White thought carefully and said, is it because you can't speak? This possibility is not without it, but White did not anticipate it before because he felt that no one could speak interstellar common language. He clearly forgot that Gu Yuncang in front of him was a child under 5 years old. Here you are. White took out a small blue bracelet from the space bracelet, with no pattern on it. This is a light brain, he said, if you want to learn interstellar common language, start the parenting mode of optical brain. It will provide 1.1 teaching to ensure that you learn interstellar common language. Looking at the blue bracelet, Gu Yuncang immediately shook his head, expressing his refusal. Is this thing called a light brain? She has an optical brain, but the words on it are not interstellar common language. Some of the words are too complex and I don't quite understand them. Take it and teach me interstellar common language. White said sternly, you can understand my words but don't know how to speak. Your parents are really incompetent. That's right, parents are also a profession. As the number of children decreases, if you want to become a parent, you must take the exam in order to reduce the harm to your children. Not everyone is suitable to be a parent. When both parents need to take the exam, children can obtain a comfortable living environment and cultivate their correct values and outlook on life. Gu Yuncang shook his head and expressed his protest against White's words. I can't even say a word to express my dissatisfaction. White twitched the corner of his mouth and took her little hand. What's the use of thinking about this? Gu Yuncang showed no resistance and allowed White to pull him along. Fendiao Yuzhua's face was surprised, her eyebrows gently furrowed, and she felt something bad was coming. She lifted her head to look at the sky, where layers of stones gathered together in the dark gray sky, emitting light and quickly moving towards them. The biological instinct made Gu Yuncang feel dangerous. She quickly released White's hand and pointed to the sky with her left hand, gesturing for White to quickly look at the sky. White followed her gaze with a skeptical gaze towards the sky. When he saw the objects in the sky clearly, his face instantly changed and he shouted loudly in the direction of Carl, Carl, come back quickly. Don't buy anything anymore. The meteorite period has advanced. His words caused a great uproar. The originally bustling crowd suddenly became panicked, and they didn't care about their food and ran forward, wanting to run home and avoid the attack of meteorites. Every meteorite period on the blue star will result in the death of many people. Because the geographical location of celestial blue star is too close to the border of the Zerg, it is the end of the Empire's defense line. Therefore, various types of meteorites often come to celestial blue star and land on it, causing serious damage to celestial blue star. The panic of the crowd made Gu Yuncang lose his direction. Fortunately, White quickly grabbed Gu Yuncang's small hand and urged Carl to catch up quickly, otherwise Gu Yuncang would also scatter with them in the crowd. Too many people made it difficult for Gu Yuncang to use his power. Carl put the purchased item into the space bracelet and ran forward with White. Due to the large number of people, White was worried that Yuncang's small arms and legs could not run away from others. He simply picked up Yuncang on his back and ran at a faster pace. The sudden advancement of the meteorite period will affect the civilization order of Uranus. Panic can be seen everywhere, and everyone is running for their lives. The advance of the meteorite period caused everyone to panic. White carried Yuncang on his back without affecting his own speed, and ran desperately forward. If you don't go home quickly to avoid the meteorite, you might even have to stay here with your life. Half an hour later, White and the others arrived at the residential area. They ran all the way and finally arrived at their destination. That is a red and blue villa, equipped with a small garden. They immediately unlocked it with fingerprint and facial recognition, and then ran inside. What catches the eye is a pure white style, and the natural marble floor makes a crisp sound when stepped on. Those natural wooden furniture were carefully crafted by White. Fingerprint recognition confirmation. Pupil recognition is confirmed. Facial recognition confirmation. The cold mechanical female voice sounded, and the entire villa came to life. The light was turned on, and its brightness was as bright as during the day. Smart butlers will regulate the most comfortable temperature to adapt to the body temperature of their occupants. In other words, everyone's perception of temperature is different. The excessive number of races in the interstellar era resulted in different temperatures perceived by each individual. Carl sat on the sofa with a tired face and sighed, "It's still comfortable at home. It's not in vain for us to spend a huge amount of money decorating here." This villa was jointly purchased by White and Carl to decorate the area with money. Although they have no blood relationship, they are not brothers who are better than brothers, and they have had a lifelong friendship with each other. Of course. White said sincerely, "Although these things are expensive, they are very worthwhile. By the way, White." Carl's gaze suddenly fell on Yuncang. "This child really needs to be raised. He's only a bowl of rice left and right, but if we take it seriously, there will be a lot of costs to pay." Carl is talking about time, energy, and money. Once these three factors are involved, even if they are disconnected in the future, it will be difficult for White to emerge from them. That's why Carl doesn't agree with White adopting this child. They haven't found a wife yet, so they have to take care of others to raise their children for the next generation. People's hearts are biased, and it's naturally difficult to focus their energy on the other children with their previous child. It's not because of lack of love, but because of the amount of effort put in. The more one puts in effort, the more unwilling they become. This unwillingness can lead to various emotions, such as the most direct love. Of course. White nodded seriously and said slowly, "This is a decision I made after careful consideration. It is precisely because everything has been planned out that he can directly say that he can raise this child well. Old buddy, it's up to you." Carl was not much surprised by this. "You think it's okay?" As for Yuncang's opinion, they did not consider it. They respect children's lives, but they are not very good at considering their opinions. Because they have no intention of becoming parents at the moment, they naturally will not take the exam and are unsure of how to take care of their children. Yuncang looked at them calmly, his golden eyes flashing with complex emotions, and soon returned to normal. In less than 10 minutes, there was a violent sound coming from outside the villa, which was an earthquake caused by a meteorite hitting the entire planet. The earthquake had strong fluctuations, but it did not affect the villa, even the windows were intact. Yuncang immediately looked out the window and noticed a faint white halo surrounding the villa and garden, protecting them from the earthquake. In other words, it is this layer of power that protects the villa, so that the villa does not need to worry about the side effects of the meteorite period. Yuncang suddenly understood the reason why they were calm. It is precisely because of this layer of protection that even during the meteorite period, they just need to stay at home and not go out. In the next moment, colorful meteorites shone across the entire sky, causing a change in the sky and a loud noise reaching my ears. Enable sound blocking mode. The cold mechanical female voice rang out again, and not long after, she didn't hear the noise outside. The whole villa is very quiet. This is the power that technology brings. Do you have a name? White asked Yuncang in a low voice. I told you before, my name and surname. In theory, children as old as Yuncang have already memorized things, and it's important to know their own names clearly. Yuncang. Yuncang spoke slowly. She had been learning interstellar common language since she was on the way. The parenting mode on the optical brain allowed her to learn quickly, and soon she mastered the interstellar common language. Listening to her words, White's face turned sad. So you're illiterate, he said. He is more certain of his conjecture. Yuncang is not a mute, but an illiterate person who cannot even speak interstellar common language. Ahem, upon careful consideration, she's still a child under 5 years old. He not only thought in his mind, but also laughed directly. Upon hearing his undisguised laughter, combined with his suppressed expression, Yuncang's face darkened. Yuncang looked at White with a subtle expression. White smiled awkwardly and said, "Come, follow me, I'll take you to your room." White led Yuncang towards the second floor. This villa has 4 floors, and he and Carl each occupy 1 floor, so only the second floor has rooms left. There are 10 rooms on the second floor, and Yuncang can choose 1 and leave 2 guest rooms. The other rooms can be used as a study, gym, and music room. The music studio and gym are both in response to the policies of the Star Empire Military Academy. The major empires in the interstellar world primarily rely on military force. Therefore, fighting ability and mech control ability are of utmost importance and are the foundation of the empire's foundation. White took her to the middle of the second floor, which was a white decorated room with furniture made of pure wood. "This is your room," White said in a low voice. "If nothing unexpected happens, this room will belong to you for a lifetime." Yuncang didn't answer, but looked at him with calm eyes. Everywhere is a cold decoration, revealing a cold emotion that silently surrounds Yuncang. She likes this feeling. It can make both body and mind feel happy. "It looks like you really like it." White could feel that Yuncang's mood was quite good, and he could understand that Yuncang really liked this room. Yuncang nodded. She liked this room because its decoration style wouldn't disgust her. She still has resistance to the outside world. The door was gently closed, and when Yuncang was alone in the room, she felt the world quiet down. She leaned against the bed, sitting cross-legged on the ground, her golden eyes fixed on the window, gazing at the brilliant radiance emanating from it. That is the anomaly brought about by the meteorites landing. The falling speed of meteorites is getting faster and faster. Fortunately, they are inside the villa, and under the protection of the villa, they don't have to worry about meteorites. "Sister." A familiar and tender voice rang in his ear, and Yuncang's eyes darkened. At this moment, a golden luster flashed by the window, merging with those golden eyes, and the atmosphere instantly sank. "What is there to believe in these people?" A chattering voice rang in my ear, "Sister. You keep ignoring me. Do you think I'm very noisy?" Yuncang watched the color changes outside the window and never paid attention to him. For her, the scenery outside is much more interesting than him. Not speaking is default. Yuncang said indifferently, dismissive. Her golden eyes were calm, as if nothing could enter her eyes. "Actually, this is an illusion. Do you still admit?" "Sister, you really leave me puzzled," revealed a hint of helplessness in her tender voice. "Hate is hate, dislike is dislike, but you don't reply to me, yet you don't hate me. What logic is this?" "I don't know either." Yuncang whispered, his eyes still looking out the window. "I'm thinking of something. Can these meteorites be broken down? Since they drifted over from outside the planet, theoretically they operate according to a certain pattern, so I believe they can be destroyed. Looking at the dazzling meteorite clusters, she didn't think about their beauty, but about destroying them. This planet has come to a standstill due to meteorites, and social order has been temporarily suspended. Yuncang looked deep into the world outside the window, his golden eyes flashing with complex emotions. Although this planet is not yet very beautiful, it is gradually improving. Of course you can. A soft voice revealed a hint of joy. As long as it's what my sister wants, all of this can be achieved. It depends on whether sister wants it or not. Yuncang ignored him, her delicate face expressionless. Her personality was relatively cold, and she was calm about everything. Even if he knew that his parents didn't really love him, Yuncang didn't care too much. Inheriting memories will not be fraudulent, but the disgust she felt when she was still in her embryo can naturally understand her mother's resistance to her. It is precisely because of this that she can calmly accept this fact. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Milk Fragrant Fruit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Milk Fragrant Fruit. When Yuncang saw these meteorites, his thought was to tear them apart to prevent them from shaking his eyes. In fact, Yuncang did the same. Her figure disappeared in place, and the next moment she stood in mid-air, watching the scattered meteorites. A golden barrier opened beside her, and her small hands, like lotus roots, directly touched the meteorite belt. Most of those meteorites are arranged on the meteorite belt, appearing to be connected together. In a moment, the meteorite belt was pulled down by her repeatedly. This seemingly powerful meteorite in her hand was no different from an ordinary stone. She clenched her hand into a fist, and the meteorite was directly crushed. The dragon race is born with a strong physical body. Even if she is still in her childhood, the powerful force she unleashes can tear apart these meteorites. She is a person who does whatever she says. In less than half an hour, this meteorite belt was torn apart by Yuncang. The next moment, her figure reappeared at the bedside. Yuncang looked out the window and found that the scenery outside had already changed. Due to the elimination of the meteorite belt, only scattered meteorites are still heading towards the atmosphere outside the barrier of the blue star. Yuncang leaned against the bed with satisfaction, his small feet pressed against the ground. The cold feeling on the ground did not cause her discomfort, but rather made her feel very comfortable. Yuncang particularly likes cold things because it is her characteristic. Her strength attribute is ice, and she naturally prefers cold things. So she really likes these things without temperature. Not long after, a faint voice rang in Yuncang's ear, causing her golden eyes to instinctively flash with surprise. The next moment, she heard the voice of White Luji. Yuncang, what do you want to eat? White lowered his voice and looked at the tightly closed door with a puzzled expression on his face. He is not very good at coaxing children, so he also doesn't understand their emotions. Everything is fine. Yuncang's indifferent voice rang out as she opened the room door and stood in front of White. As long as you can eat, I won't pick. For Yuncang, anything she eats can be eaten because she doesn't think that food that can be cooked will have a harder texture than those meteorites. You should know that even meteorites can be crushed into powder by her. White Luji twitched his lips and looked at Yuncang helplessly. It's not that I don't want to be casual, but that I don't know what to eat. Most foods can be eaten by adults, not necessarily by children. Just as White Luther was still distressed, Carl spoke out and said, "Isn't milk-flavored fruit suitable for children to eat? It's just that this thing is expensive, and it's priceless in the sky blue star." With the development of technology, fully automated farming models have been achieved. However, due to issues such as insect infestation and environmental pollution, the cultivated land area has been greatly reduced, and the prices of these natural plants with good effects have doubled in the market. But I remember White, didn't you pick over a dozen milk-flavored fruits from the forest last time and prepare to sell them? Carl's gaze fell on White Luji. I remember those milk-flavored fruits weren't placed on your space ring. That's right. White Luji suddenly remembered and quickly took out the milk-flavored fruit from the space ring and placed it in Gu Yuncang's little hand. Milk fragrant fruit is a white fruit with light green fruit lines on it, and its area is only the size of an adult's fist. This thing may be heavy for a 5-year-old cub, but in Gu Yuncang's hand, it feels like it has no weight. She glanced at the avocado, then looked at the expressions of White and Carl, and then picked up the avocado and nibbled it out. A faint and sweet sensation erupted on the taste buds, and Gu Yuncang's eyebrows relaxed. The taste of this milk-flavored fruit was quite good. Overall, it lacks the delicious taste of its own eggshell. This milk-flavored fruit can ensure that you don't go hungry all day. White Luji glanced at Gu Yuncang and said, "If you like it, I'll buy more next time and put them on your space ring." White had already planned to buy a space ring for Gu Yuncang to store food. Meteorite periods often occur on this side of the blue star, and once there is a meteorite period, it takes 1 or 2 months. White Luji has a very thoughtful mind. Gu Yuncang glanced at the milk-flavored fruit again, and his golden eyes showed a surprised expression. "But I haven't eaten enough yet," he said, "not even half of it." Upon hearing these words, White and Carl exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with shock. White Luji's expression was the most exaggerated. Because he felt like he had picked up a snack. Lost, today is another day to earn money. A milk-flavored fruit costs 1,000 interstellar coins, or is it the kind with price but no market? Sometimes it takes another 2,000 to 3,000 yuan to buy. At that moment, White and Carl seemed to hear the sound of heartbreak. That's money waving at them. This is a terrifying gold-swallowing beast. White took out 5 milk-flavored fruits and placed them in Gu Yuncang's hand, asking her to eat them quickly. After finishing 5 milk-flavored fruits, Gu Yuncang spoke again, "I'm still hungry." His golden eyes were bewildered. She was very attentive to the changes around her, so the changes in White and Carl's expressions did not escape her eyes. Gu Yuncang realized that this thing was expensive, so he was at a loss. After all, she is now a poor person. It was precisely because she was penniless that she cared about the emotions of White and Carl. White spoke up and said, "Great, it seems we need to earn more money in the future. This child must have a different race." Carl spoke in a deep voice, looking at Gu Yuncang with a hint of surprise in his eyes. A human cub can survive a day by eating 2 milk-fragrant fruits, and this is still the most edible cub. This child has eaten 7 milk-fragrant fruits but hasn't eaten enough, so it's obvious that he's not a human cub. There were many races in the interstellar era, and the most famous were the dragon, shark, phoenix, and other races. The rulers of the Starry Empire are the emperors of the Dragon Clan, therefore the Dragon Clan holds the highest status in the entire empire. Mind him. White whispered, "Even children of those races, I don't care anymore. Since I plan to adopt this child, it has been my child. Not to mention milk-flavored fruit, even if it is a priceless item, as long as it is useful to Gu Yuncang, he will still get it for him." "That's also right." Carl sighed and said, "Take out those natural foods to make. This child needs a lot of energy to grow." The energy provided by 7 milk-fragrant fruits cannot fill her stomach, indicating that her race is very powerful. "No need." Gu Yuncang spoke out, her golden eyes reflecting the figures of White and Carl. "I'll just eat these milk-flavored fruits," she said, "cooking is a waste of time." Gu Yuncang thinks that the taste of milk-flavored fruits is quite good. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Going to the Forest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Going to the forest. She quite likes the taste of this milk-flavored fruit. It is sticky and has a soft feeling, but it tastes delicious and melts right into the mouth. According to Gu Yuncang's judgment, it is quite suitable for young children to take. Although he is essentially a cub, Gu Yuncang does not believe that he needs to rely on others. White spoke up and said, "We still need to prepare food. We can't make you eat milk-flavored fruits all at once. It's not that they don't have the money to buy milk-flavored fruits, but that balanced nutrition is the best for the development of young children. If you want to become a strong cub, you cannot be picky eaters. Of course, White also inferred from Yuncang's habits what race of offspring she was. Do you like milk-flavored fruits? Are they herbivorous race offspring? The gentle races flashed through White's mind. Not right, there are not many races of cubs that can resist the deliciousness of milk-flavored fruits. This cannot be used as a basis to judge her race. Don't you think it's a waste? Yuncang looked at him in surprise and said, I can't repay you anything. I'm still young now, there's nothing I can do. Nothing is good for no reason, so Yuncang does not believe that White treats him sincerely. Those golden eyes were filled with confusion. Looking at her bewildered expression, White chuckled lightly and said, Don't worry, these won't make you pay. Since I have decided to adopt you, then you are my child. Even if I am poor, White Luji cannot lack you for a bite. Don't worry and eat boldly. Seeing her expression, the string in White's heart was tugged at, and his heart was moved with compassion. He believes that young children should be innocent and carefree, rather than considering issues such as price. Children should have the appearance of children, rather than being forced to grow up. Living like that is too tiring. Old buddy. Carl's overjoyed voice seemed to penetrate through this villa. The meteorite period ended in less than half a day. This is the fastest meteorite period I have ever experienced. Listening to Carl's words, White looked out the window with a skeptical gaze. When the brilliant light turned white, it indicated that the meteorite period had ended and the sky could only return to its original state. This is not very reasonable. White frowned and said slowly, there are many meteorites in the meteorite period, and it takes 2 to 3 months for them to naturally fall. It is because there are too many meteorites that the protective impact effect of celestial blue star is not very effective, which makes the meteorite period of celestial blue star longer. Now in less than a few hours, the meteorite period has ended. If something is strange, there must be a problem. The early end of the meteorite period may not necessarily be a good thing for them. Damn it. White looked at Yuncang standing in front of him and said, after the meteorite period ends, those strange beasts will launch a large-scale attack on the town. White's expression became serious, and he could imagine that scene. The forest area of Tianlan Star is large, but there are very few vegetables and fruits available for human consumption, most of which are inedible mutated plants. With the development of technology, the pollution of animals and plants is expanding, so natural food is more sought after by people. White and Carl are bounty hunters whose responsibility is to eliminate those wild beasts and prevent them from attacking humans in towns. Without genetic fusion, the weaker human race may not have the same combat power as other races, which is considered weak. However, with advanced human technology, it can also occupy a place in this mixed race. For every monster that enters the frenzy phase, they will receive 10,000 interstellar coins. It is precisely because of the high price that they risk their lives to live in the forest, making it easier for them to deal with those monsters that have entered the frenzy period. That's right. Carl looked at White with a puzzled expression and said, what should this child do? We're going to the forest, it's very dangerous there, we can't take her with us. Just as Carl finished speaking, his optical brain sent a message. On September 20th, 1023 in the Gregorian calendar, the meteorite period of the blue star was lifted and entered a safe period, allowing residents of the planet to move freely. Remember not to go to the forest for the time being, exotic beasts are going crazy. As soon as this message was published, there were millions of comments instantly. White didn't click on those comments to see, and without thinking, he knew it was a doubt about the meteorite period. White looked at Yuncang, with a complex expression on his dark face. He reached out his hand to her and said, do you want to be with us? I will protect you. Listening to White's words, Yuncang immediately nodded and said, okay. Wherever she goes, it doesn't make much difference to her. Yuncang has an indifferent attitude towards these things. There was no emotional fluctuation in those golden eyes. White took her little hand and walked forward. If you come with us, you just stay in the room and don't come out, otherwise those guys will tear you apart in an instant. White was not joking, but speaking to her very seriously. Most of the exotic beasts in that forest were large and ferocious beasts, and with just one palm, Yuncang disappeared. Her short body couldn't even withstand a slap from those exotic beasts. Okay. Yuncang responded with a mouthful, and his golden eyes remained calm. She doesn't think those things can hurt her. Dragons are born noble, how can their majesty be touched by others? Even though she is a young dragon, she already possesses the qualities of a strong individual. In the sudden and lush forest, there was a house, and Yuncang and them came here by spaceship. The roar of beasts kept ringing, and through the dense bushes, I saw the pairs of eyes shining with light. White held a laser gun in his hand and aimed the trigger at their fragile necks. The next second, waves of screams rang out. Under their protection, Yuncang was unscathed and even looked at the group of strange beasts calmly, with golden eyes filled with curiosity. They are mostly large in size and have a ferocious appearance. Instinct prompted them to evade the attacks of White and Carl, and their target shifted from them to Yuncang. Because compared to the tall White and Carl, Yuncang, who still looks like a cub, looks very easy to bully. White and Carl protected Yuncang in the middle, but they underestimated the intelligence of these exotic beasts. A small monster broke through their protective circle and launched an attack on Yuncang. The sharp claws came straight towards Yuncang, and as they were about to land on him, White blocked the claws with a gun. The next moment, a distinct claw mark appeared on his arm. Damn it! White spoke in a low voice, and the next moment there was a loud bang, with more than a dozen bullets fired by him. The strong smell of blood attracted more and more exotic beasts, and when White and Carl were both weak, the teeth of a large exotic beast aimed at Yuncang. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Why are you not afraid of me? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Why are you not afraid of me? White and Carl widened their eyes, as if time had come to a standstill. They could only watch helplessly as the monster with a bull head, a large body, and a ferocious face swallowed Yuncang's young body into their stomach. As the exotic beast approached Yuncang, there was no emotional fluctuation on his delicate little face. Her first reaction in the face of danger is indifferent. In the next moment, a hand penetrated its chest, and a rich blue blood sprayed out. The ferocious face had a painful expression, and the eyes were wide open, as if he didn't understand how a powerless cub could instantly kill it. The expression of dying without closing his eyes did not arouse Yuncang's sympathy. The small face carved with powder and jade was calm, as if it could not fluctuate like stagnant water. She let go of her hand, and the sound of heavy objects falling to the ground was clear in the ears of White and Carl. They exchanged a glance and saw a shocked expression in each other's eyes. It is difficult for them to believe that a child can kill a massive C-level monster in an instant without witnessing it firsthand. Although they can do it themselves, it is truly shocking that a child who has not yet awakened their talent can achieve this level. The human genetic hierarchy is divided into several levels. S, A, B, C, D, and F, with more detailed divisions at each level. Due to the weak genetic makeup of the human race, it is difficult for them to develop strong individuals. White and Carl are the human race, and as bounty hunters, their energy level reaches B+, making it easy to kill C-level monsters. If it weren't for the large number of exotic beasts in front of them, which made them weak, there wouldn't have been a scene of exotic beasts attacking Yuncang. A child who has not yet awakened her talents can kill a C-level monster in front of them, and one can imagine how brilliant her future is. Although they were surprised, they still started killing these exotic beasts on the spot, and the strong smell of blood permeated every inch of the space in this place. White held his weapon and shuddered all over, then recovered in the next moment. It seems that we have found a treasure. White's gaze fell on her little hand, with some blue blood lingering on it, highlighting a hint of strangeness. The face of Findiao Yuzhuo was expressionless, as if he didn't pay much attention to these things. In fact, the remaining light in her eyes was looking at White and Carl, observing their expressions. Inheriting memory is only used as a reference, and more importantly, she needs to learn how to survive. There will be a lot she can learn from White and Carl. This ability is also known as imitation instinct. She is definitely not a child of the human race. Carl said with a hint of horror, if we really want to adopt this child, if her parents come knocking on her door in the future, we won't be their opponents, and by then everything will be too late. There are differences between humans and those races. Although they may appear like human beings in various aspects, they possess explosive power and abilities that humans cannot possess. In other words, it is difficult for human genes to break through that barrier and reach their level. In short, if they can't beat others, that's right. If we really want to raise this child, it will be them who will suffer blood loss. Not only did he suffer financial losses, but the emotions he had poured in over the years were also about to disappear, which Carl was unwilling to accept. He doesn't want White to suffer losses. Upon hearing Carl's words, White smiled slightly and said, "Don't worry." His gaze fell on Yuncang. Let's talk about things in the future. I only know that if I raise this child now, she will be my child, not someone else's child. Let's talk about it then. White's blandness made Carl anxious. You help others raise children. I've said it all, let's talk about it in the future. White interrupted Carl's words and took out a handkerchief from the space ring to help Yuncang wipe off the blue blood. Children still need to love cleanliness, he said. Yuncang said. Yuncang widened his eyes and looked at White with a bewildered expression. She didn't quite understand what this human was thinking. Although they were very afraid of themselves, they still said such illogical things. Yuncang, of course, saw the fear that flashed in their eyes at that moment, and was naturally prepared to be abandoned by humanity. She accepted it calmly because she knew she was not loved by her mother, so she felt that loving or not loving was normal, and that no one could live without someone. Unfortunately, they did not intend to abandon themselves after seeing it. This subtle feeling made Yuncang feel very strange. Are they different? Yuncang thought slowly, his golden eyes full of surprise. White took Yuncang's small hand and walked towards the front room. Inside, the strong fragrance of wood wafted into the nose, and furniture was readily available, all of which were pure and natural. This is the house that White and Carl spent several years building, in order to provide physical and mental enjoyment when hunting those exotic beasts. Do you think bounty hunters don't need to pay attention to feelings? Of course it's impossible. They make money just to live a better life, and of course they won't compromise themselves on these details. They want to live a very good life. White sat on the sofa, looking leisurely at Yuncang. What do you want to say to me? He saw that Yuncang's face was unhappy, and he knew that Yuncang had something on his mind. Why aren't you afraid of me? Yuncang lifted his head, his innocent face full of surprise. She thought she would see their fearful expressions and abandon herself out of fear, but she didn't expect them to treat those things as if they hadn't seen them and continue to raise her. This was unexpected for Yuncang. Listening to Yuncang's simple words, White smiled slightly and said, "Why am I afraid of you? No matter how terrifying and powerful you are just a child." White reached out and touched her long black hair, feeling a soft touch. "Since I decided to adopt you, I've treated you like my child," he said. "I believe in the arrangement of fate. I think your appearance is fate's compensation and also fate's hope for me. A child doesn't need to think too much, this is White's idea." Yuncang widened his eyes, and his golden eyes clearly reflected the figure of White Luji. Even though White Luji's appearance is not very attractive and his dark face highlights his brave side, he is tall in Gu Yuncang's heart. At least he didn't despise himself. Gu Yuncang is not very talkative because she instinctively feels that her birth is not expected. In other words, she is not the child that her mother expected. Therefore, her birth was abandoned by people. But there is someone who cherishes her very much. The subtle feeling surprised Gu Yuncang. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Softness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Softness. The once cold heart suddenly felt warmth, like a fierce beast finding its habitat, able to restrain its temperament and become gentle. It's not that she's resisting the world, but that the world can't accommodate her existence. Gu Yuncang was shocked by White's words. The sudden softness that appears in the heart is because this person does not abandon themselves. What if one day I can't control my emotions and take action against you? Will you blame me? Gu Yuncang asked subconsciously, with golden eyes fixed on White, her mood particularly heavy. Although Gu Yuncang has never attended school, she is a young dragon with inherited memories and naturally will not be easily deceived. Hee. White chuckled lightly, his smile blooming on his dark face, highlighting a hint of his handsomeness. You won't take action against me, he said. What do children want to do with these things? White touched Gu Yuncang's head again and said calmly, let's talk about it on that day. He hesitated because he couldn't tell a child with certainty. Children have an instinct to imitate, and they will actively imitate the behavior of others. He wants to cultivate Gu Yuncang into a responsible child. Until the end, he couldn't even be certain about those things, and naturally didn't want Gu Yuncang to be too certain about certain things, which would lead his personality to extremes. It is precisely because Gu Yuncang is still young that White Luji instinctively thought a lot, focusing on the physical and mental development of children. But I'm no longer a child. Gu Yuncang stared blankly at him and said, don't treat me like a child. If I had even more terrifying power than before, would you be afraid of me? Upon hearing this, White smiled again and said, you are indeed still a child. Those things are still too far away for you. Instead of thinking about them, it's better to relax and study hard. Don't worry, since I have decided to adopt you, I will naturally treat you as a child. He regards Gu Yuncang as his own child, naturally looking at him from the perspective of his elders. He naturally felt that Gu Yuncang's ideas were too naive, just a child's idea. Sure enough, the age of the heart and the age of the body are completely different. I won't do it. White gently touched her head and whispered, Yuncang, leave these problems to your future self to solve. You should eat well now and grow up quickly. After speaking, White took out a roasted suckling pig from the space ring and placed it on the nearby table. Eat it quickly, he said. Eating more can help you grow your body. Gu Yuncang gave him a slightly surprised look and said, why are you so kind to me? We don't have any blood relationship between us. The inheritance memory told Gu Yuncang that human society is maintained by blood relationships as a hub. There is no blood relationship between them. Is it necessary to have a blood relationship to treat you well? Isn't it? Gu Yuncang's golden eyes flickered with curiosity. Isn't blood relationship important? Why do they all feel important? This question is very profound. I cannot explain it to you clearly at the moment. White whispered, let me think about it for now, okay? White cannot say with certainty that he is not yet married and has children, making it difficult to tell her the correct answer. His own life is full of confusion, so he cannot speak out. Is that right? Gu Yuncang blinked and a confused emotion filled her eyes. I don't quite understand, she said. I'm wondering if something is really different. Gu Yuncang didn't quite understand his meaning, but he was still working hard to understand. If blood ties are not important. Before Gu Yuncang could finish speaking, there were roars coming from outside the room. White and Carl's faces changed instantly, and they exchanged glances, filled with fearful thoughts. They all picked up weapons and headed towards the door. Before the door opened, White said to Yuncang with a heavy expression, "Don't leave here. If we die here, then you should run quickly. The farther you run, the better." These exotic beasts suddenly entered a frenzy period, and their combat power was between twice and 3 times that of before. Therefore, in the face of them, both White and Carl have no certainty of winning. Or rather, from the moment they stepped out of this wooden house, they were prepared for death. White's only concern is that Yuncang is still young and they have not yet completed the adoption procedures, so Yuncang will go to the imperial orphanage. The roar of the beast continued, and the figures of White and Carl disappeared in front of Yuncang. With a creaking sound, the door closed in front of her, with golden eyes burning with flames, and angry emotions flowing through them. The blue dragon pattern began to spread from her shoulders, covering her pink and jade-carved face. Her golden eyes sparkled with light, and the powerful authority spread around her from the center. The majesty of the dragon clan could have caused all the beasts to retreat. Although Yuncang is still a young dragon, her essence is dragon. The dignity of the dragon race cannot be offended by waiting. After the majesty of the dragon clan appeared, some of the strange beasts with red eyes had regained their clarity, but the next second they continued to become turbid, allowing themselves to be dominated by emotions such as mania. The so-called manic period refers to the period when these exotic beasts are influenced by their manic instincts and then burst out with powerful power. Before becoming manic, these exotic beasts had a level of less than B, which was manageable for White and Carl. After becoming manic, the overall strength of these exotic beasts will increase by 1 level, which is B level. White's level has only reached level B, and the human body is weak, unable to compare with the strong bodies of these exotic beasts. It is precisely because the difference between the two is too great. White and Carl came with the idea of dying to deal with these exotic beasts. They are not 1 or 2, but a group. They swarmed in, as if something was attracting them here. White and Carl didn't think much, they swiftly fired bullets one after another, their dark faces becoming more serious. "Damn it, these guys seem like they can't fight to death and are desperately coming towards us." Just as Carl finished speaking, a dog-like monster with sharp claws bit its sharp fangs at him, and the sound of tearing echoed instantly. Carl's body was bleeding red. The next second, with a bang, White shot and killed the monster. He forcefully pulled open the jaws of the monster, which saved Carl. In less than 5 seconds, Carl was bitten off a large piece of flesh, and the pain instantly spread throughout his body, making Carl's face pale with pain. However, the top priority was to get rid of these guys. White pulled Carl's hand with his left hand, and on his right, a canine monster launched an attack. If it were normal, White could certainly avoid this attack, but after multiple battles, his stamina was exhausted and he was no longer at his peak, making it difficult for him to avoid it. He closed his eyes, thinking that what was waiting for him would be death. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Handling Procedures. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Handling Procedures. The next second, a huge shadow enveloped his eyes. As the giant mouth was about to devour White, green blood sprayed on White's body, staining his clothes green. A pair of lotus-like hands pierced through the chest of the exotic beast, and a young figure stood in mid-air. The reason why she is young is because her figure is vastly different from this room-sized monster. From a distance, one would feel that her figure was like a black dot. The powerful majesty spread from her body, and her golden eyes reflected the figure of each exotic beast. The next moment, her figure disappeared into place, and the sound of heavy objects falling to the ground continued to ring. The seemingly soft arms were sharp like a blade piercing through the chests of various exotic beasts. These B-level monsters are difficult for White and Carl to deal with, but for Yuncang, they are still too weak. Without using her innate abilities, Yuncang was able to directly kill these exotic beasts with her hands, indicating her powerful talent. The monster that was terrifying to them was unbeatable in her eyes. One monster after another fell, and the trees also fell to the ground. A wave of smoke and ash drifted past, and Gu Yuncang's figure finally appeared before their eyes. Gu Yuncang took out blocks of brightly colored crystals from their bodies, and her lotus-like little hands flickered with light. She turned to look at White, and Carl quickly walked over, and then placed these crystals in White's hand. The inheritance memory told her that these crystals have the ability to enhance abilities. So Gu Yuncang planned to put these things in White's hands, hoping that White would sell them. From the every move of White and Carl, she could feel that she needed a huge amount of money to support herself. That's why she dug out these crystals, hoping that White could spend less money. Is this for me? White gave Gu Yuncang a sincere glance and then chuckled lightly. Do you think I can't afford to support you? No, it's not. Gu Yuncang said, I don't want you to waste all your money on food. White and Carl's tone made her realize that those foods were expensive. These things can sell for money. Gu Yuncang whispered, and a slight blush appeared on his small face, which was a shy expression. After talking to White, Gu Yuncang's inner thoughts were shaken and he had a great liking for him. White took these things and his golden eyes finally calmed down. A strong bloody smell filled their noses. You can keep absorbing to enhance your superpower power. White placed them in the space ring, intending to enhance Gu Yuncang's abilities when she grows up in the future. Originally, Gu Yuncang's physical strength was very strong, able to kill one B.level monster after another at once. I don't need it. Gu Yuncang looked at him coldly and said, Don't worry about me, I will become stronger. These things are useful for lower-blooded races, but they are of no use to them. Looking at Gu Yuncang's golden eyes, White thought for a moment and said, That's right. From the color of your eyes, we can tell that your background is not simple. Yuncang, in the future, you should hide your eyes and not let others discover your differences. Those golden eyes, once fixed, are difficult to wake up from and easily immerse themselves in. This indicates that her bloodline purity is very high, which indirectly indicates that Gu Yuncang's racial identity is not ordinary. Gu Yuncang nodded, indicating that he knew. Let's tidy up and sell these for money to send you to study, White said slowly. He came up with these things and planned to use all the money for Gu Yuncang instead of spending it himself. White has really changed. Watching the scene of them getting along with Rome, Carl muttered to himself. As a friend, he certainly hopes that White can get over it better. Just intuition told him that it's better not to touch this girl. No one knows what the future holds. As the sun set in the west, White cleaned up the corpses in front of the wooden house and cast a deep gaze at the pink-carved jade-carved girl standing beside him. Yuncang, you can go now. Upon hearing White Luji's voice, Gu Yuncang looked up at him and followed White and Carl away without saying a word. White rented a spaceship to the inspection office, and this time he needs to confirm the adoption procedures, so that Gu Yuncang can be registered under his name, so that Gu Yuncang can have a household registration with the Blue Star. Otherwise, Gu Yuncang belongs to the Black family and will be deported by Tianlan Star. Without a household registration on Tianlan Star, one cannot attend school on Tianlan Star. Since White has decided to adopt this child, he naturally wants to take care of these things to avoid affecting Gu Yuncang's future. Looking at this high-tech building, her golden eyes flickered with curiosity. She had never seen such a building before, so she was particularly unfamiliar. This 500-meter-tall building stands tall in this city, and its plaque reads, Imperial Inspectorate. Blue Star Branch. That's right, the Inspectorate belongs to the Imperial Military Headquarters and is managed by His Majesty the Emperor today. Therefore, the inspection bureaus of those planets are called sub-bureaus, and their intelligence is uploaded on the internal information stations of the Imperial Inspection Bureau. The laws of the Empire were extremely strict, so the crime rate was particularly low. It's brilliant, isn't it? White chuckled softly and said slowly, This is what the Imperial Capital Star allocated funds to build. The empire has countless races, among which the most powerful are the dragon race. It's difficult for us humans to stand out among these races, so most of us humans are distributed on some remote planets. It is precisely because humans find it difficult to break through their limits that their status is gradually declining. White Luji looked deeply at Gu Yuncang and thought to himself, could this child be an anomaly? People of other races have always looked down upon the human race, which has led to significant exclusion of the human race. Gu Yuncang nodded and a surprised expression appeared on his small face. Is the empire big? Of course it's quite large. His Majesty the Emperor is the strongest of the Dragon Clan today, and the Dragon Clan Legion he leads can defeat 10,000 with one enemy. There are over 8,000 planets under his throne, so we are nothing among the many planets. White spoke softly, admiring His Majesty the Emperor of the current empire. Unfortunately, His Majesty has not yet had an heir. Upon hearing White's words, Gu Yuncang spoke up and said, what was the original name of the empire? I don't quite understand. The golden eyes were full of bewildered emotions, and the inheritance memory had never mentioned these things, so Gu Yuncang did not understand them. The Starry Empire. White Luji held Gu Yuncang's small hand and said, you'll know about this when you go to school. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Procedures. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Procedures. It's not that White is showing off, it's because he doesn't know how to tell Gu Yuncang about these things. He thought that after Gu Yuncang went to school, those teachers would teach him, so he wouldn't need to worry too much. The issue of children's education is indeed of utmost importance. The Star Empire has always attached great importance to young children, so things related to young children are highly valued, especially in terms of education. White Luji doesn't need to care too much about these things. Without any resistance, Gu Yuncang let White hold her little hand, her golden eyes fixed on the movements around her, and her heart became heavy. White took Gu Yuncang to the household registration office. Sitting behind the desk was a young woman with a beautiful face and a slender figure. Her flowing black long hair, which emitted a shiny oil, seemed to reflect like a mirror. The agile black eyes stared at the crowds coming and going. Seeing Gu Yuncang's small face carved with powder and jade, the female inspector had a joyful expression on her face. She looked at Gu Yuncang with gentle eyes and said, hello, little sister, what kind of business do you want to handle? Her love for the cubs was already engraved in their genes. As the number of offspring decreased, the empire's protection of offspring increased significantly. She hasn't seen many cubs since she started this job, which shows how low the birth rate of cubs is. Gu Yuncang didn't speak, but looked up at her, his golden eyes as if flowing with a radiance. At this moment, she became even more fond of it. Apply for household registration services. White coughed lightly and said to the female inspector, she doesn't have a household registration for Blue Star yet. She was with my wife before, but now our marriage has broken down, so her household registration has also been revoked. Therefore, she does not have a household registration with Tianlan Star and needs to register a household registration with Tianlan Star. As early as the decision to adopt Gu Yuncang was made, White had prepared everything and let Gu Yuncang have no worries. He won't let the handle fall on someone else's hands, so naturally he wants to do everything well. His original intention was to complete the adoption procedures first, so that Gu Yuncang could become his child. But he thought for a long time yesterday and still didn't want their relationship to become an adoption relationship under their name. Those who didn't value her in the province came over, so if he wants to handle it, he needs to have a father-daughter relationship. White Luji is a person who does whatever he says. Mobilize others to complete these tasks long before coming. This way. The female inspector spoke with a sudden realization, and she was not too surprised because such things are common. In the case of marital breakdown, the offspring they give birth to will be allocated to which parent based on their genetic level and the amount of genetic inheritance. If the father accounts for 70% of a child's genes, then the child will be raised by the father. On the contrary, if the mother's genetic proportion is higher than that of the father, then the custody of the child will belong to the mother. The determination of genetic inheritance in the interstellar era depends on a child's innate abilities. In other words, children follow their parents equally, depending on the luck of the couple. This child's ability to follow his father is naturally due to the inheritance of his father's genes, not the genes of his mother. What is her name? The female inspector asked again, age and race. Her name is Yuncang Lu Ji. I am 5 years old and of human race. Upon hearing these words, the female inspector looked at White Lu Ji in surprise again. This child's eyes don't seem to be human. At first glance, those golden eyes are not the offspring of the human race. Based on her years of understanding, most of those with these eyes are fierce races, such as the snake race, elf race, and other powerful races. She is of the human race. White said seriously, these eyes are just inherited from her mother. Before coming here, he had already thought of this layer of things and was fully prepared. It's better to hide these eyes, otherwise those of those races will see this child guilty. The female inspector thought for a moment and took out a bottle of medicine from her small bag. This is the medicine that covers up the color of the pupils. Drinking it can change the color of the eyes for 7 days. What she was thinking was that Yuncang would take a photo after drinking this bottle of medicine and use it as a household registration record photo. How much is it? White asked in a low voice. I'll transfer it directly to your optical brain account. It cost you a lot. Of course, White will not accept the kindness of others for nothing, and naturally wants to use money to solve these problems. No need to pay, it's a free gift. The female inspector immediately explained, this is a special benefit of our inspection bureau for young children. Protecting young children is written into imperial law. She spoke calmly, expressing the goodwill and love of the imperial people towards their offspring. It is precisely because of the love for young children that we constantly make changes based on this foundation. These things all act on young children and are naturally non-toxic. After entering the interstellar era, those materials themselves were refined countless times, ultimately obtaining mild and harmless materials, making these materials widely used in various things of young offspring. This is also why the things used by the cubs are very expensive. Because that material is still very rare. However, the imperial finances are subsidized, so that the imperial people do not have to bear too much pressure to raise children and do not affect the fertility rate. Okay, thank you. White thanked her softly, and Yuncang, who was standing by, glanced at her before whispering, thank you, sister. The small face carved with powder and jade showed a hint of blush, indicating a shy expression. Inheriting memories told her that it would be impolite to address older women as sisters rather than aunties. Although Yuncang may not understand very well, she has always believed in inheriting memories and walked according to the requirements of inheriting memories. You don't need to thank me, the female inspector smiled gently, and Yuncang's figure was reflected in her eyes. Little sister, how lovely you are. She took a photo of Yuncang as a photo on her registered residence, and gave them 5 more bottles of the potion, which is more than a month's consumption. In front of Yuncang, he specifically mentioned the name of the medicine and asked White to open his mind to see the price of that medicine. Despite reaching the interstellar era, the inspectorate still uses office equipment such as computers, rather than AI recognition on the optical brain. Because these materials are confidential and need to be uploaded to the Imperial Information Database, they cannot be directly transmitted to a personal computer. In order to protect the information security of the imperial residence, there is continuous coordination within the empire. With the sound of the keyboard, her name also appeared on the registered residence of Tianlan Star. After finishing, the female inspector refracted the computer screen in front of them, allowing them to see clearly. Yuncang looked curiously, with golden eyes shining brightly. She's seeing these for the first time. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. About the issue of going to school. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 about the issue of going to school. Name. Gu Yuncang Lu Ji. Gender. Female. Race. Human age. 5 years old. Talent. Situation. Not yet awakened. Gu Yuncang looked at these few lines of words and the photo next to him. His eyebrows and eyes instantly relaxed, as if melting ice and snow, and his delicate face was full of laughter. His golden eyes now had a gentle touch. At this moment, she felt a sense of belonging. She is not a child that no one wants, but a child loved by others. If her biological parents don't care about her, then she won't care about them either. Gu Yuncang thought slowly in his heart. This is a paper version of the document. Remember, my name is Lin Yuchen and my job number is the 13th. If you need to handle business next time, you can come to me. If that's not possible, you can add my contact information now and inform me on Guangdao next time you come. Lin Yuchen smiled and her gaze fell entirely on Gu Yuncang. She couldn't refuse such a lovely cub. At the moment she saw Gu Yuncang, she couldn't help but want to help him more and not be too upset. Gu Yuncang has always had a calm face, not at all like a child. White Luji hesitated for a moment, but still added Lin Yuchen's contact information with his computer and noted his name. Okay, thank you. It's okay, come more next time. Lin Yuchen kept looking at Gu Yuncang. After a while, Gu Yuncang and White left the inspection office and walked everywhere on the street. Starting tomorrow, I will take you to school. White glanced at Gu Yuncang and slowly said, we cannot be illiterate. He knew that Gu Yuncang had relied on a translator to understand their words before, and knew that this child was still very unfamiliar with interstellar language. Therefore, she needed to learn more, otherwise she would be abandoned by this era. This is a rapidly developing era, or an era full of technology. Everyone's life cannot be separated from technology, so naturally we must work hard to learn and not be abandoned by this era. I am not illiterate. Gu Yuncang glanced at him, his golden eyes filled with helplessness. I didn't know these things before, but now I can understand them, he said. Please, there are several sets of phonetic systems in her inheritance memory, but there is no inheritance of interstellar common language, so she couldn't understand these people's words earlier. I don't believe it. White chuckled lightly and said to Gu Yuncang, from today on, I will be your father. As your father, I say whatever I say. I said you are illiterate, so today I will take you to handle the enrollment procedures, and tomorrow I will go to school for you. Listening to White's words, Gu Yuncang gave him a cold look and snorted coldly to refuse, I don't need to go to school. She doesn't like places with too many people, which makes her feel depressed and naturally doesn't want to go to school. Her heart is filled with resistance to going to school, and of course she doesn't want to go to school. She doesn't feel like she needs to go to school. I am your father. White immediately expressed his disagreement, as a child, of course you have to listen to your father. I don't want to go, Gu Yuncang said with a tense face and displeasure, that place is of no use to me. Gu Yuncang once again emphasized his unwillingness. You must go. So tell me, what benefits can that place give me? Gu Yuncang questioned him, if you speak up, I will consider going. Can make you stronger. Am I not strong enough? Gu Yuncang said calmly again, I think I'm very strong, so I don't need to go to school. She doesn't want to go to school, it's an extremely difficult thing for her. Her heart was filled with resistance. Of course you are very strong, but you still need to learn this. White held her little hand tightly and said with an unchanged expression, everything you learn is your own, so you need to study hard. Those things can be understood even without going to school. Gu Yuncang retorted again, with a resistant expression on her small face, she didn't want to go to school. That's different. White lowered his voice and a helpless expression appeared on his face. Learning to make new friends on Facebook will make you more outgoing. Like-minded friends will affect your life. Yuncang, listen to my father's words and go to school. If I had been able to attend school in the past, I wouldn't have fallen to this level, so you can make up for my regret. He spoke with a painful expression on his face, and his eyes flashed with sadness, which happened to be captured by Yuncang. Yuncang looked up at White hesitantly because of his words, and happened to see the sadness. Yuncang's originally firm idea was shaken because she felt that White looked too sad. It doesn't matter whether she goes to school or not, but if it makes White uncomfortable, Yuncang feels quite uncomfortable. After thinking for a moment, Yuncang spoke up and said, "Okay, then it depends on your regret. I'll reluctantly go to school." Mainly because she doesn't want to see White feel uncomfortable, so she doesn't think going to school is a big problem. "Okay, it's a deal." Upon hearing Yuncang's words, White's expression suddenly changed and he calmed down. "I'll take you to school to register, and I'll send you directly to school tomorrow," he said. White thought to himself that if Yuncang were a little older, it wouldn't be easy to deceive him. She's still young now. He can persuade her with just a few words, but when she grows up, she can't. Taking advantage of the present, Yuncang has not regretted it yet. Hurry up and finalize this matter. White quickly took Yuncang to Tianlangsing First Primary School, and he wanted to quickly register her as a student, so that this matter could be directly determined. At that time, even if Yuncang wanted to go back on his word, he would obediently go to school. There are no children who don't read. Tianlangsing First Primary School is the school with the best teaching quality and the most expensive tuition fees in Tianlangsing. It covers an area of 1 million acres, about the size of a city, but the number of students does not exceed 10,000 because the fertility rate has been continuously declining in the past century, and the number of newborns is constantly decreasing. Despite funding from the Celestial Blue Star Army, the finances of Celestial Blue Star First Primary School are still in deficit. There is no other way. Children's things are very expensive, especially when it comes to maintaining a large area of the venue. The cost cannot be reduced. They took half an hour by plane to reach Tianlan Star First Elementary School. Yuncang looked curiously at the gate and plaque made of pure gold. The railing of the gate was about 10 meters high, and the height of the surrounding walls was 20 meters. From outside, it looks like a huge prison. If it weren't for the tall buildings standing inside that could be seen from the outside, it would really feel like being in prison. As the best elementary school in the Sky Blue Star, directly under the management of the Sky Blue Star Military Headquarters, this school naturally has the best teaching staff in the Sky Blue Star. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. First Meeting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. First Meeting. Yuncang looked at these buildings, and the name of the first primary school is well deserved. Just those buildings alone surpass the villas of the entire planet, and the height of the floors is about 200 meters. At this height, the entire Sky Blue Star is also very high. Due to the vast territory, it is generally not allowed for civil buildings to exceed a height of 100 meters. Due to clear regulations, the height of buildings on Tianlan Star is not too high. Even the military headquarters building is less than 200 meters. So the height of a primary school building exceeds 200 meters, and this condition is already very good. This is your future school. White said with a relieved expression, "You're going to school tomorrow." He has already decided that after Yuncang goes to school, he will take on more tasks to earn money and provide Yuncang with a better education. Whenever he thought of that scene, his emotions became particularly excited and he couldn't suppress his excitement. "Do you start learning from the basics?" Yuncang asked in a low voice. She didn't think this school was very oppressive, but she didn't really want to start learning from the basics because she didn't lack them. She was previously treated as illiterate by White because she didn't have a translator to translate interstellar language. If it weren't for White saying he had regrets, Yuncang would probably not have agreed to White's request to come here to study. Not necessarily, it depends on your level of enrollment. White's expression became serious, because each child's development is different, so to understand a child's development level, it is necessary to conduct a test on the child. The first thing every new student at Tianlangsing First Primary School does before entering school is to take the opening test. This test determines your future class division. As the saying goes, genius and genius are of the same kind, so the final result of this test will affect her classification data. The development of individuals is different, and it is not necessary to require geniuses and ordinary people to stay in the same class, which is why this division exists. Oh. Yuncang nodded, indicating that he knew, and gestured for White to quickly take her to the entrance exam, so as not to waste everyone's time. After greeting the gatekeeper, White led Yuncang into Tianlangsing No. 1 Primary School, and the two of them went to the Academic Affairs Department with great enthusiasm. As soon as I entered the school, the fragrance of flowers lingered in my nose, and the tall buildings caught my eye, attracting Yuncang's interest. She likes tall things, so her regret in her heart has decreased a bit. She always feels like she has forgotten something, but she just can't remember it. The teaching center of the first primary school is located on the first floor, which is convenient for children who have not yet fully developed their bodies to come here to report. White has been here many times, so he quickly arrived at the teaching office. At the door, White led Yuncang in and wanted to explain Yuncang's problem to the teaching director. Unfortunately, there was also a woman in a long dress leading a little girl in long pants talking to the teaching director inside. The teaching director is a young woman with fair skin, brown hair, and black eyes. She wears an old pair of black glasses to cover her eyes, but her frown indicates that she is not in a good mood. The teaching director was wearing a tight black outfit, highlighting her curvaceous figure. She stared coldly at the little girl in front of her. "Do you know?" The voice of the teaching director cooled down and said displeasantly, "No matter how much they reject you, it won't change the fact that you are the legitimate young lady." "Of course I know, but what can I do?" The girl looked at the teaching director displeased. "They didn't treat me like a family member. If someone cared about me, would I end up like this?" In those clear eyes, complex emotions flickered at this moment, and in a faint voice, "They think I have tarnished this noble bloodline. It's been a year now. After I awakened my talent, no one cared about me anymore. What has happened over the past year has been a series of nightmares for her." It was precisely because the nightmare had ended that she became completely dazed. Is she someone who is not needed just because she hasn't awakened the talent they want? The fate of becoming an abandoned child constantly reminded her, making her realize that her future was not optimistic. A future that nobody cares about. Upon hearing this, the teaching director sneered and said, "She has really been overwhelmed by love. She doesn't even take care of her own daughter, and hopes others will take care of her. If you ask me, she's just a fool." The black eyes were filled with anger. What is she really thinking? Since getting married, I can't understand her brain circuits anymore. She doesn't even care about her own child, how could anyone care about her child? Thinking of the content of that letter, her face turned extremely ugly. "Put you on my side and let me protect you. This brain circuit is extraordinary." Upon hearing this, the girl shrugged and said nonchalantly, "I'm 6 years old now, and in a few years, I'll be an adult. I don't need to look at their faces to make a living." She is ready to leave them and become independent when she reaches adulthood. She has already figured out which planet she will live on in the future. You don't need to think about it, what you need to think about now is how to survive on this planet. The teaching director paused and said helplessly, "Coming to this planet is equivalent to exile. No matter how you say you are also the eldest daughter, why did you fall to this point? I can't understand." They want a descendant who inherits a strong bloodline to continue giving birth. Why torture their own child? White and Yuncang stood at the door and heard these words. They walked back and stood next to the railing, waiting for their conversation to end. In this situation, they certainly cannot disturb. Because they are discussing their personal matters, as outsiders, it is better not to listen too much. The faint footsteps calmed their minds and they immediately looked towards the door, where they saw White and Yuncang. "Hello." The teaching director gave them a gentle smile and said, "I didn't pay much attention to the outside world when discussing things. Are you here to bring the children to report?" When she spoke out, the girl sitting in front stood up and sat on the nearby sofa, offering her seat to them. Yuncang glanced at White and stood calmly beside him, listening to him and the teaching director chatting. The girl's gaze fell on Yuncang, with a surprised look in her agile black eyes. This girl is very beautiful and has a cold temperament, giving her a feeling of not being too close. If you only look at her face, this girl's popularity is unparalleled. Even in the era of genetic optimization, it is rare to have a flawless beauty like Yuncang. That pair of eyes that exude a chill is the most attractive to her. Seeing these eyes, her heart couldn't help but beat, making it difficult to control her emotions. End of this chapter.